All right, perfect. Welcome everybody. My name is Michael Rahm. I am the Director of Product Marketing here at Collibra for AI Governance. This is a first for us. This is the first time we're doing an Ask Me Anything. We thought it was going to be particularly applicable because of all the excitement that we've had around AI governance. If you just joined us in our release webinar, you heard Wouter talking about the release. If you've been paying attention to us at all over the last, I don't know, 8 months, 9 months, we've been talking about a lot of AI governance. And so first I want to say, Wouter, big congratulations to you and your team for having the product GA. It's very exciting for everyone. For maybe some folks that don't know who you are, you want to introduce yourself to the world?
All right. Wouter Mertens, based in Belgium and Brussels. I am already 6 years at Collibra, and I'm the product lead for AI governance. But I'm also leading the privacy and art protect product. Both have to deal with sensitive information and how to protect, how to identify it, how to make sure that there is good governance around it, how to make sure that you can have masking or access management around it. And as such, AI is the next challenge for us and a normal extension of dealing with sensitive information and the risks while you want to continue with maximizing the value you want to get out of AI. So I was very happy to start working with the team on this. And we developed really quickly, and we developed together with our customers a product that is now GA.
Yeah, and it's really exciting too. I mean, I know we did the beta. We had 100+ organizations join that beta. So really exciting to kind of see not only the level of interest was from such a wide variety of organizations, but also the number of folks inside of those organizations that have been interested, not just in the beta program, but I know you've been inundated with meetings and messages and questions and kind of all things. So hopefully this is a good opportunity for us to kind of answer some of those questions. We really wanted to do this inside of Collibra community as well, because we wanted to ensure that the folks that are out there that really are part and active of this community kind of get first access to these types of events. And so this is the first of many. This sprouted from a small idea Alex and I had just a couple of months ago, and now we're here. And so we're really excited. So without further ado, we've had some questions that were provided anonymously. If anybody's out there watching, please provide and feel free to ask questions in the comments here. We want this to be interactive. We want this to be a conversation. So with that, I'll start kind of with the ones that we've got already. And this is an interesting one. We actually heard a lot about this topic at Data Citizens as well. And so I'm glad somebody asked this here. The first question is, how much change management is involved in AI governance if we've already implemented data governance?
I would say not much, and yet surprisingly enough or a lot. I would first argue that the data governance is really important for AI governance. You need to understand your data, and definitely how we look at it. But we consider the data to be extremely important when you develop any kind of AI project or AI use case. And as such, understanding the data, identifying the right data set, which is specific to each use case. It's not tied to the model, but more to the use case. Understanding what kind of exposure you're having with that data, and that could be technically, but it could also be on a business level. Think about data that might be procured from a third party. All of that information is so important to make that decision on, am I going to be using this data for that model, yes or no? And when you think about it and you start experimenting this, and this is typically for the data scientists to do, you're always doing a trade-off. You're doing a trade-off between what I want to get out of it compared to the risks I'm taking. And you need to have that balance between value, cost, and risk. And in that sense, it's not much change management. Somebody that is already having a lot of data governance in place, has processes, understands the value of having that insight in data, is prepared to think about, okay, I have these data sets that I can choose off, and I know the difference between them. It is different, and that would be the most important aspect, I think, of change management, that you would get much more and much broader audience and much more stakeholders inside your organizations that need to contribute to artificial intelligence as a use case of data, and you typically have of a classic data approach. In a classic data approach, your usage of data might be, for instance, in reporting. It might be in line with analytical persona inside and functions inside the organization. And they also understand data. They're very savvy at data. They understand SQL. They can touch data. When you talk about artificial intelligence, you suddenly open up to business people. You open up to people inside your organization who do not work with data on a daily basis or not with that kind of expertise as other. And I think the change management lies mostly around adoption, the ability to make it simple. I think the word explainability, which is coming back a lot when you talk about responsible AI, is really important here to really drive that one forward as one of the most important change elements that you want to drive.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned business folks. I think a lot of times we hear that word governance, and all of a sudden we think like, oh no, this is bureaucratic red tape and hoops we're going to have to jump through. It's important that organizations really look at this, especially from the business side, as an enabler, right? It's doing a little bit of work up front to then hopefully make all these processes go a lot faster, be a lot more streamlined and more beneficial for the entire organization. So AI governance definitely something that is going to be important for everyone moving forward. Another interesting question, and I think, and I know you and I both have had these conversations too with customers, and depending on the organization, right, the answer kind of jumps because this is all brand new for us. But what group or department should own AI governance? We're currently having internal struggles.
I can imagine, because indeed when I demo or when I talk to people inside organizations or to customers of Collibra, I have a very wide audience in front of me. At Collibra, we believe that the data elements are really, really important. You can think about it as being focused on compliance, regulations, laws, and then you're talking more to privacy people, legal people, that kind of audience, and they should own that element. And then you move over to, well, you could also think about being the head of AI and the data scientists themselves, being responsible for selection of models, coding, integrating data and models, exposing the service and monitoring the service, which is an operational kind of view. It does not mean that the value is always there to top of mind. They might be looking at it more from a technical point of view. And then in between, you have the data people. And what we tend to see is that AI governance becomes more and more a use case of data. So a lot of the risk comes from the data elements. And if you want to drive artificial intelligence towards a good KPI, good metrics, you need to really work with the data. You need to fine tune the data. You need to make sure the quality is right. You need to see that the purpose is right. You need to see that the data really matches your use case and your desired outcome. You need to make sure that there is no bias, that the distribution is correct. You need to make sure that there are no hallucinations or there is other data hiding inside the system that can be used by the artificial intelligence engines, or definitely a large language model. So data really drives one of the key combinations, and it does integrate really well also with compliance, because data has a lot of touching points with that compliance in nature. And it does influence also a lot about those models. So for us, more and more, we see the chief data officer, and it becomes already the chief data and analytical officer. And you could actually imagine becoming the chief data and AIO, so the AI officer, as a natural tendency in the market where we see those audiences starting to take ownership. understanding the processes, understanding the governance around this, being able to leverage all of their work that they've done around data governance already, which makes it much more efficient and effective. Having those touch points with privacy people, DPOs, having those touch points with security people, data security, having those touch points with the business, the analytical usage there. It seems to be that it's gravitating towards that direction as being one of the best suited audiences or owners of the entire process and the entire accountability, which does not mean that, for instance, a data scientist or the head of AI is also not important, definitely when you think about being in production. The size of ideas and development is still much, much, much larger than what we actually see coming out in production. But once you are in production, we need to realize and we need to be vigilant that any AI service in production requires not only a technical supervision, but also a business supervision to ensure that there is no drift, no hallucinations, no bias. It needs constant monitoring from a business point of view to ensure that it does not expose unnecessary or causes unnecessary information or causes brand damage or reputational damage.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, you mentioned a lot of different stakeholder groups. I think it's also important to understand too that regardless of who kind of quote unquote owns AI governance, collaboration amongst all of these teams is vital, right? It doesn't matter if the data team owns it, they have to bring in the risk, they have to bring in legal, they have to bring in security. You know, we've even seen organizations that are bringing in HR groups, right? Because, you know, they want to do AI use cases around, you know, internal to their own organization that use employee data, right? So you've got to have all these stakeholders at the table. You know, it's not necessarily just about day-to-day ownership, but having all of those groups there.
I would consider collaboration one of the key requirements for any kind of AI governance tooling out there. If you are not going to be able to support that kind of almost organic collaboration around the use cases, it is going to be a tedious process anyway. You're ending up with a classic governance process flows of 5, 6, 10 years ago, all over again.
Indeed. This is kind of an interesting kind of chicken or egg question, and I assume this comes from someone who is not a current Collibra customer. It looks like they're just starting their kind of governance journey, and so they ask, what should come first, AI governance or data governance?
Ooh.
Right, because we could answer that question in a couple of different ways,
Yeah.
right? We talked about, you know, change management up front, about laying that foundation, but obviously organizations right now are kind of grappling with all of the AI use cases that they have all over the organization. They don't know what's going on. They don't know the risks associated with that. So, yeah.
I would argue first and foremost, it's AI governance values data governance. So it is an example of where you can see first value when you are implementing a data governance flow. So I would argue that if you are starting with data governance, please continue as quickly as possible to your AI use cases, because you would see why you're doing data governance. And you would have AI and artificial intelligence projects to be the ones that drive the need for, I need to catalog that data, I need to bring that data under governance, I need to know the lineage of that data set or that data product. So it drives sort of prioritization inside your data governance. Would that mean that you always have to start with data governance? Not necessarily. For instance, our tool makes it possible to work through assessments with identification of data on a more textual basis. You can just describe the data that you plan on using. You don't have to pinpoint to a specific table or a column out of the gate. We do recommend over time, and definitely if you reach that pivotal point of going into production, that you do have a more physical layer and a physical mapping of where the data is residing and how you're using the data and how the data came to be. But from a starting point, you could start with AI governance as something there where you build out your priorities, where you build out your listings of this is the data I would like to consume. This is the data I think would be most valuable. I know it exists inside my organization, but I have no idea where it is and who is the owner and who's accountable for it. And that should then drive the need for simple, practical data governance that is good enough for this AI use case, and that can be expanded on later on. I think chicken and egg, yes, a little bit. The better you do your data governance, the more value you will see appearing of that data governance inside AI governance.
Yeah, we obviously too, I think the big message is we want to meet folks where they're at and we want to help them on their journey. I think it's, if you look at kind of the data intelligence maturity, right? You don't have to have all capabilities all at once. They obviously bring increased value to the organization as you look to adopt. So good answer.
I think you also can say that the more complex use cases you have with artificial intelligence, where, for instance, you have personal information, or you want to have, you're doing something with patient information, or you're dealing with banking information, credit card information, that kind of stuff. You do want to require higher degrees of data governance to ensure that the data is well identified, well described, well annotated, potentially even hashed or masked or protected or removed from the data set before moving into. So you're right, the level of data governance and the maturity that you can gain has an immediate linear, almost linear, or even exponential effect towards your capabilities at the AI front. To be able to use more critical or more important or more sensitive data in a safe way in artificial intelligence, which could be a competitive advantage, which could help you with accelerating your go-to-market, and which could generate more return on investment overall.
For sure. When are you going to be expanding your integrations? Which MLOps platforms will you be integrating with?
Yeah, a very tactical question. So we have right now Google Vertex integrated and Databricks integrated, and we are GA with both of those integrations. And we will continue to deepen those integrations. Right now, we have the ability to detect the models that are being used. We want to enhance that with more metrics coming from the performance and the deployment of those models, identifying where this model is being deployed specifically for that use case, having the metrics coming out of there. We're not going to be a full network operating center like in the old days, but some of the more business-oriented metrics should be available inside Collibra. We are already developing together with AWS on SageMaker, and we want to extend it also to Bedrock. So the platforms on the SageMaker, in the AWS ecosystem. And we're doing the same with Microsoft on the Azure AI integration to Azure AI Studio. Okay. So customers that are on both on those platforms will soon have also that integration to be available for them. After that, the team is immediately going to pivot towards Snowflake, which has the Cortex environment available, and to SAP. SAP is a common application inside our customer base, a common platform inside our customer base. And they have their AI hub that allows them also to integrate with external AI foundational and large language models. And it would be interesting to do that integration so that you automatically can select the models available in that AI hub also inside Collibra to have your documentations quickly done and quickly up to place. That's current roadmap, planned roadmap. We expect to accomplish all of those integrations with our first major release of next year. But they will come in intermediate steps already before that. In the meantime, we deepen them also all out. We do have a Python code already available that integrates with our API. We'll maintain that as our API will broaden open. We will maintain that Python code. That Python code allows you to integrate manually in any kind of platform that supports Python, which is quite common already, which allows data scientists who are running in an ops platform of their own choice, open source, third party, to also integrate from there directly inside Collibra.
Okay. The next question, and going to make an assumption based on the question. The question is, what kind of AI is your new offering focused on? I think the question is really more, we've obviously heard a lot about Gen AI. I don't think you can go a day without something in the news cycle talking about Gen AI. AI is not new, right? We've been using analytical models for years and years and years. So I think the question is more, are we focused on one or the other, or does Collibra AI governance tackle both?
We tackle both. With the integrations you already heard, the Vertex environment. The Vertex environment is typically large language models. Databricks, however, supports both. SageMaker, typically more classic AI machine learning, where you develop your own models. Bedrock, again, a library of foundational models. We don't really make any distinction, and we actually see this also thanks to our extensive preview period, that our customers also are going very broad. And we know from the market evaluation that there is a big tendency on moving forward with generative AI, large language models, what we call foundational models, because you can integrate them rather quickly. But that real value and differentiation, and definitely in certain verticals, is found when you do really extensive and very difficult and very complex operations with artificial intelligence, and you develop your own models. So we kind of work with both, and we don't want to abstract to a level that you don't know the difference anymore. But we do incorporate, for instance, in our relationship between our data and our models, we do distinguish between training data, which also incorporates fine-tuning data, inference data, which is typically the vector databases in large language models, but could be data directly linked to classic AI, and the output, which is in either one of the other case, the storage system where you store your output, which could be a data set, but it could also be the prompting of the conversation that in certain cases needs to be stored, even for a long period of time. So we take both in consideration, and we consider that to be one of our guiding principles when we design this product and when we are now evolving this product. We want to have the ability to support both in the most convenient and most practical way.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the organizations out there that are not at the point where they're deploying Gen AI right now, it's important, look at AI governance for your ML models that you already have, catalog all of those, get a good handle on what you're already doing within your organization so that you can then move forward with those Gen AI use cases and understand the kind of the level of risk that the organization's already taken on with the AI models that are out there. And then maybe that'll help influence level of risk that they're willing to take on moving forward with new use cases. All right. So we actually got a little bit of this question in the release webinar as well, but we've added a little bit on. Are assessments customizable? And do we have anything specific for the EU AI Act?
Those are two questions. So let me start with the first one. Are assessments customizable? Yes. Assessments are by design customizable. They are template-based. They're questionnaires. They're template-based. We have an assessment template editor, which is a no-code drag-and-drop user interface where you have, like, I think 10 or 12 different kind of questions that you can pull in. You can give the question a title, description, some small sub-marks, and you can have the answers listed up. There is a logic there which allows you to say, based on question number 1, answer A, I would like to show question number 4, 5, and 6. If you answer B, I would like to show question 2, 3, and 4. So those logics are in place so that you can make the assessment as lean as possible or as extensive as possible based on the answers that the people are given. The idea of using assessments inside AI governance comes from actually 2 functional requirements. We wanted to have the customization availability, of course, but we actually also wanted to create the ability for our customers to have a review step. Whatever appears in your asset page, in your use case, is going to be shared with a lot of people who want to find the truth in there. They want to be able to trust the information that is available there. And if somebody can just go in and type it out there, it is at the discretion of one single person that that answer or that content is correct. You set it up with an assessment, you have a review step in place natively that allows you to at least validate the content and approve on the content before it is being published. It's a kind of a journalism process, but we try to make it as easy as possible. That is a big advantage because now you can rest assured that, and since we can pinpoint the assessments to different functions inside the organization, each of the functions can double check their own content. You can rest assured that numbers of people went over this content before it was published on that asset page and before you can consume that information. Customization is really important. The ability to review is really important. Of course, a third smaller advantage of assessments is the ability to integrate within Collibra so that you can actually select within the assessment the content that is already available inside Collibra, which means that you can select data that is already under governance. You can select data products that are available in your marketplace. You can select models that come through the integration with Vertex or Databricks already in the model catalog. And you don't have to type it over. You don't have to reassess that information all over again. You can get the latest update and the latest intel around that kind of asset inside Collibra, which means that you can do with 2 clicks and 4 questions, you can have a full questionnaire filled out around why did you choose this data? Why did you choose that model for this use case? And the data scientist is good to go and doesn't have to come back to that anymore. That ability, that integration ability is extended with the ability to say, well, if the data is not available or if the model is not available, please fill out these open text fields where you can describe what you're looking for. That is fully integrated in one single assessment. It's easy to use, and it creates for us the ability to give to our customers one platform, one functionality that allows them to be very dynamic in their nature. And like we said before, you can start with AI governance and then pull in the data later, or you can start with the data and just have it linked in a 2-second click with the AI governance application. Do we have something specific for AI Act? Yes, we're building it. We're building a sort of example or template questionnaire that is really geared towards those things that are mentioned in the articles of the EU AI Act. Do we consider that template to be bulletproof, to give you immediately assurance that you are compliant? No. Collibra is not a company that gives you compliancy. We'll help you demonstrate compliancy, but customers are responsible within their processes, within their data, within their AI governance for getting themselves compliant. It is a template that gives you guidance on what do you need to think about, what are important elements that we need to cover. And it could be a surprise that some parts of that template do require you to go in and annotate your data a little bit better, for instance, or that you need to have additional relationships or additional context be stored inside Collibra to be able to answer those questions. It is intended to help customers go quicker, but we do expect most of the legal teams to go anyway over that template and annotate, adjust, adapt, customize that template to their specific needs, to their specific business, to their specific requirements, and to their specific risk appetite, considering how important artificial intelligence will be for your business.
Yeah. You mentioned some of your favorite thing about assessments. I think the biggest thing that I love about assessments is that it can save, especially data scientists, a whole lot of time and resources, right? If we identify upfront that there's a use case that we just don't want to do, instead of a data scientist spending the time, money, resources to build, and then only for it to be shot down at the 11th hour. Let's do that up front. So assessments are definitely
you can trigger those assessments very early in the stage, which doesn't mean they have to be completed there, but at least everybody gets already immediately the right questions and right considerations and the right context in their mind of, okay, this is what I need to fill out if I select this data set. So you're right, it drives a sort of pull forward of risks and controls inside the process of AI governance.
Yeah. All right. We didn't get a chance to participate in the beta. Will there be other beta opportunities, ways for us to try? Before you answer that, I will just give a plug to our new products tour. So anybody can go right now onto Collibra.com, click on product tour, and you can get hands-on not only with AI governance, but with other capabilities within the platform. So there's my little plug for that project that we've been working on.
I was about to do the same. So really pleased. If you want to have a taste of the experience, how it look like, those are the real screens. Those is the real flow. You really get an idea about process, about the design guidelines and the design principles we followed for the product. Not sure if there is going to be a new beta. This beta was successful, but it's also quite labor intensive.
Yeah.
It does require a lot from Collibra and from my team. It does require a lot from the customer. You do get a preview, but it might not be fully functional. You have to answer on surveys. We'll do interviews. When it comes down to providing feedback towards Collibra, please reach out. Me and my team are also always happy to talk to a customer. We're always happy to give a small demo, to talk about our roadmap, and to validate whether or not we are doing the right stuff and bring the right value in that roadmap towards our customers. If you want to get the experience, you have the product tour. There might be a new beta coming in the future when we introduce a big new scope around AI governance. There are definitely going to be betas for other products in our full platform suite. So please stay tuned for those. And all of those products are, I would not say connected, but at least integrated with each other. So if you're looking for instance, data quality or observability, if you're looking for data products, if you're looking for platform features, there are multiple betas running at any given moment inside Collibra. You can contribute to each one of them. For AI governance, it will not be right around the corner. We have a lot of feedback that we still need to incorporate from our previous beta. We see our first customers going live already today. Very excited about that. Want to learn how it really works and how easy they can get going with AI governance. That will all be incorporated until our release from October. After that, we do expect the next release in January or February next year. Next big release, it could be that there will be content there that we offer a beta towards our customers.
Great. Next question, and you and I have had conversations with analysts that are kind of asking this same question as well. After a use case is approved, can we manage deployment of AI models through Collibra?
Yes and no. Yes, you can. No, I will not offer, or we will not offer it out of the box. I don't think Collibra is going to have pretty soon an integration to any kind of model ops platform where deployments can be triggered automatically, because that requires another level of integration than the type of integration we do today. We are cloud software. Having a connection into those systems where we can actually trigger that system to start doing something requires also a lot of steps and controls to be in place, specifically for that deployment. Whereas I believe that most of the time, and definitely in AI, which is not an easy deployment, the data scientist who probably already has a platform, or the data scientist team already has a platform to take everything in consideration and bring that across that element. Would it be possible for you to integrate? Yes, if you have a very clear project or process in place that does the deployment, it is possible to use some kind of information of Collibra in those environments. And there are some ideas floating around with customers of ours or with partners of ours around doing that. For instance, I know of an idea where certain elements about the life cycle of an AI use case, which is going to be managed by an AI governance body like a council or a committee or something like that. Certain of that information will be iframed or in-frame brought to the platform where the data scientists are working. So basically, they don't have to log out and go into Collibra to visit whether or not the status is approved or not approved. They can actually see it with a click of a button inside their application. That kind of integration is not Collibra's integration, can be achieved through our API, is part of another platform's offering, but does help with a seamless integration, with a seamless experience for that data scientist. There could be others. Sending out push notifications around status updates inside Collibra, sending out alerts or notifications are all capabilities that we can support, but they're all a little bit more where the customer needs to know how, when, and specifically to their process that they want to have that kind of setup be conducted. Collibra AI governance is fully part of the Collibra platform, and as such is fully supported by the Collibra API. No exception there. So anything which is possible with the API can already be done as we are now GA with the product. So those kind of integrations can be set up. But it does require intimate knowledge of the process and where you want to integrate to have the maximized value coming out of it.
Yeah. Here's a question that came from Nicholas Pappas, and it's actually outside of AI governance. I don't expect you to have the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyways, just to keep you on your toes. And if we need to direct him to another one of our product managers, let's do that. But regarding Collibra's asset description generator, how does Collibra ensure the quality, consistency, and appropriateness of the automatically generated asset descriptions?
Well, we have some. Well, we should talk to Seth and the team specifically working with that AI description generator. Mm-hmm. We do use a lot of information around the exact column, for instance, the table and other columns around it, to generate that description. Take into account all the context we can find in our knowledge graph, of which we can guarantee that it's well governed. And that there are governance processes in place to ensure that the content of the knowledge graph is validated. We do offer also the opportunity for human oversight. So it is not a full automated process. It can be full automated and you can do bulk approvals, but there is still human oversight to ensure that the text and the values of the description are meaningful, sensible, appropriate, and in line with what you expect for those columns to be taken in place. That human oversight allows you to generate multiple tries. It allows you to save one of the descriptions that are in place. Want to have more details about the exact contextual safeguards and controls that we have in place, we have to indeed point them to Seth to give that answer as he leads that AI, our internal AI team providing that service.
Yeah, and Nicholas, I'll make sure when we're done with this that I connect you with the appropriate folks. All right. How are you different from other AI governance tools out there? Interestingly, we were having a conversation with some analysts the other day, and you know, I think everybody's kind of got their own definition of AI governance. I think in the broad sense, people are tackling it from different points of view. So I'll let you jump in on that, and I'll add some color to that as well.
Yeah, I think for us there are a few unique selling points right now. I think we're definitely connected to the data, and we can have a lot of insights from that data. And I want to stress that particularly because I believe it is not only a unique selling point, but it's actually very efficient. If you can think about organizing yourself in such a way that you can have a group of data sets or data products that are what we can call AI ready, fully vetted, fully okay, distribution is known, the content is really known, you have the necessary controls on there, so nobody's changing with that data set anymore. There are no pipeline changes without you notifying or getting notified of it. They're provisioned close to AI environments, potentially in a Snowflake or a Databricks or a Google BigQuery or an Amazon S3 or Redshift, so that it can be immediately linked up to whatever platform that you want to integrate with, so SAP HANA. You are actually accelerating tremendously all of the development you're doing with artificial intelligence, because your data scientists can select and know immediately, it's safe for me to use this data set. It might not be the perfect data set right now, but for a first experiment, just to get going, to identify, okay, would this be making sense? How would it behave? How would it look like? To prototype and bring first value, it is extremely valuable. And you're still knowing for sure that your risk is minimized to the maximum. This is data I can use. This is data that is vetted. This is data that is safeguarded. This is data that has a data contract and everything around it. So that really drives that first value and that experimentation, that cadence of innovation. If a data scientist then later decides I need additional contextual information or additional value, it's also far more easier for your data engineers and your data stewards to annotate or to extend that single product to additional elements. And the likelihood of you asking for additional elements and another data scientist asking for the same additional elements is probably pretty high. Not everybody's going into different directions. You will probably quickly see that the same data sets and the same data products will be reused multiple times. So spending a good amount of effort making sure that that one is well described on the physical level, on the logical level, on the business level, on the contextual level, on the privacy level, on the legal level, on the procurement level. It sounds like a lot of work, but you don't have to do it for 10,000 different elements. You can do it with nice, extensive, pretty large data products and offer them towards your data scientist. I think that is one of the most important differentiations that we have compared to AI governance tools that are much more focused on project management or much more focused on just assessments and surveys and questionnaires to identify risk and just have the transparency rising up. But then you have to do it all over again 6 months later to be notified. That's the second point, of course. If we know all about that data and something changes, we can warn you. We can tell you upfront, hey, this data set has changed. You might want to take action. These kind of assignments, these kind of collaboration experiences between your data engineer, your data scientist, and all the other people that have to bring their context to the table are, for me, the most important unique selling points of the Collibra offering for AI governance.
Yeah. And the fact too that we talked about collaboration previously, like we're bringing folks from across an organization into a central location where they can have not only insight into the use cases, but have meaningful conversations around all aspects of the use case in order to make the best possible decision for their specific organization.
Yeah, and definitely if you don't have that marketplace or that experience yet where you have 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 data products available or data sets available, it is a little bit more labor intensive and collaborative experience. So then that collaborative experience is even more important because you have to do a sort of investigation, validation, and you cannot validate on your own. You need to validate with everybody around you to get that approval of this is the right data to use for that model to solve that use case. That trade-off is not yours to do. It's probably yours to be responsible for and make sure that it moves along. But it requires a lot of people to chime in and probably agree with the level of trade-off that you want to take to bring the use case to production.
Yeah, for sure. We've got one more question, unless anything comes in through the community. But do you support frameworks like NIST?
That's the same question, a little bit like the EU AI Act. Yes, we're looking at it. Actually, the early drafts of NIST and the early drafts of the executive order and the early drafts of EU AI Act were our inspiration for our 4 assessments that we ship right now out to the box. But please consider them to be templates. We do not have a questionnaire called the NIST questionnaire with specifically questions of NIST. We could think about this. We could collaborate with a few customers. We could collaborate with partners to offer that. But then again, I'm not sure if people would like to get a NIST specific assessment assigned to them. I would expect that an organization of different assessments according to functions or domains that ask the necessary questions and bundling everything together so that you can actually export your NIST answers in a more convenient way is probably a little bit better of an experience than going around with specific questions around a certain regulation or a certain framework that needs answered. We do, and we will write some documentation and some blog posts around EU AI Act, around NIST, potentially other regulations that are out there. Do not forget, because people talk a lot about those, but do not forget that privacy regulations are also applicable to AI. There is a stipulation in GDPR about automatic processing of data. CPRA in California has certain things, and there are a lot of other things brewing in America, in the United States, that are around not only specific AI regulations, but also privacy regulations geared towards AI and automatic processing of data that we need to take into account. We will not create 200 templates, but like NIST, EU AI Act could be great candidates to offer them to our customers as a first starting point. And you can still decide whether or not you want to keep it as one assessment or move some questions over to other assessments as they need it.
Yeah, and the fact that our assessments are customizable, like we talked about before, right? You know, really can.
We expect that to happen. We expect that to happen in any case. I mean, you could start with other assessments, absolutely not a problem. But we do expect most customers to start adapting them rather quickly, be it for the language and have it more internal referenced to internal glossaries and internal terms that you're using inside your organization. I do expect most of the legal and privacy and security teams to move in rather quickly and ask specific questions to their audience. And they can also leverage our privacy framework. Our privacy product is integrated with AI governance, and that contains asset types like risk, remediation, safeguards, controls. So if you want to avoid that everybody starts to type it in free text, you can actually use those. And you can build a risk register inside Collibra where you can say, select one of those risks here from this dropdown. And automatically we have these controls and these safeguards and these remediations in place so that you don't have to type it out in 5 questions all over again, which is also a way to make a more efficient assessment available to your users.
Absolutely. Wouter, that's all the questions that we have for today. I want to thank everyone who joined us for this first Ask Me Anything. This is going to be, again, the first of many. Again, congratulations, Wouter, to you and your team for GA of AI governance. It's very important and an exciting time for us. So with that, thanks everyone, and be on the lookout for more invitations like this in community. We really enjoy the engagement and everybody participating. Thanks very much. Have a good day.
Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.